Good morning, fellow Guardians. First things first, I want to apologise. I've still got a bit of a cold that I acquired from somebody in the household, so I might say that I've been corrupted. Too soon? Probably. But this week's Grandmaster is the Corrupted. This was the hardest one my fire team have probably ever done, so bear that in mind when you're doing your builds. It won't be an easy one. However, they have done some changes, which I will cover in this video as well. But let's get into the mods first. So there will be Overload and Unstoppable champions within this Nightfall. There will be Arc, Solar and Void, all three of them pretty much throughout the whole thing, especially in the boss room as well, so take that into account. Now, Arc damage is increased, so I would recommend probably an Arc resist as well, and the knockback damage that you receive, especially from the boss, is increased. So I'll cover that when we go into it as well. So, in terms of weapons, now the builds that we're probably going to be running might be a bit different, but we're going to see, because they work quite well for us in the hollowed layer, so they'll probably work well in this one, because there's a bit of range that you can be doing. Now, I'm going to recommend for two Guardians, the Ticuus Divination and the Le-monarque bow, because that will cover your Solar, your Void, and your Overload as well. Now, running them with like the Tarantulas, or Tarantula, as some people called, just for that bit of art coverage. Now, they work really well for range, and they work really well together as well. Like for our two-mans, they work fantastically. And you can have the third person, possibly a Divinity, but we'll cover that in a bit later. So, for the Titan, I've gone for the Ticuus Divination with the Ignition Code. Now, the Ignition Code you could like substitute for a Sniper. Any Sniper would be fine. I prefer a Succession with like Reconstruction Vorpal, but Ignition Code would be the one I recommend for the Blinding Grenades and Vorpal weapon as well. Now, also I've run that with the Tarantula, as I said earlier. Any mods is fine for that one, just for a bit of art coverage, really, and obviously if you're running it with particle deconstruction as well. So in terms of the exotic for the Titan, if you run a Titan, you'll probably know Ursa Furiosas have been nerfed. They are still usable, but bear in mind you'll only get about half back. So I would probably recommend a bubble, might be a bit better if you are going to run a Titan. Now, if you are going to do that, I'd recommend Crest of Alpha Loopy. Now, these work really well in Grandmasters because you can pop a barricade and you'll get health back as well. If you did want to run the Ursa Furiosas, you can. They're just not as good as they used to be. So, that's pretty much it for the Titan. Obviously, mod-wise, make sure you've got all your mods covered, unstoppables and overloads. So, in terms of the mods for the chest piece, though, now, you can put an arc resist on. I'd probably recommend an arc resist and a concussive dampener resist. This should, and I say this, definitely should, stop the boss from one-shotting you with her boopies when you get booped off the map. So bear that in mind, because she will wreck you with that, especially if it's increased knockback damage, which it is. So chuck those on as well. I've actually put a melee resistance on, just in case that makes a difference, but we won't know for certain. So, but in terms of the changes that they're actually making for the Corrupted, now, the hobgoblins, which were originally snipers, they are no longer snipers, or they've been replaced with unstoppable ogres. So that's going to make a massive difference. And another main difference is within the boss room, the boss will not appear for the second boss phase. So once you damage her and she disappears, that'll be it then, until you go through the portal, which is going to help tremendously, because that was really difficult on the first week. So that's it that I've done for the Titan. Let's head over to the Warlock. Now, you've probably noticed I've still got the festival masks on. If you are still short on the spectral pages, I will let you know the Grandmasters give you 5. So you can always chuck them on, make them 10 obviously, level them up and chuck on your mods on them to make them helpful. But if you don't need them, I wouldn't recommend it. I definitely run what you need to. In terms of the Warlock though, now, I wouldn't recommend a Titan as much on this Nightfall, but I would definitely recommend Warlocks. Probably 2 Warlocks and a Hunter, probably. If you're going to do that, I recommend Wells. Maybe 1 Well and 1 Stasis for the Bleak Watcher grenade. But again, that's up to you. 2 Wells would be fine as well. Well. So, Middle Tree Well, if you're going to be running that, I'd recommend the Phoenix Protocol. Now, this will get you super back when you're getting kills in there. And as you can see, I've already got the Arc Resistance mods on there. If you are going to be doing the Stasis, though, I would probably recommend the Eye of Another World, just so you can get some ability regen when you're getting your Bleak Watcher grenade back, which would be really helpful. Stasis is going to be really useful in this, because it wasn't available the last time the Grandmaster came out, so it will be helpful to just slow the enemies, especially if you guys already tried this in Master, you already know all this. In terms of the weapons, though, I've got the two builds for this one. So this is the one, not the Le-monarque. I'll do the Le-monarque build on the hunter. So for the warlock here, I've gone for a sleeper simulant. Now the sleeper is great for a bit of ammo because you get so much ammo within it, as well, especially if you run some mods to benefit from that, and you can run it with particle deconstruction as well. And I've gone for the arsenic bite for a bit of arc, just kinetic ammo, primary ammo essentially. And the ignition code again, you'll see that a lot because I love using the ignition code because their blinding grenades really help in a pickle. So if you don't want to run sleeper simulant, what you can do is you can subsidize it and you can run probably a linear fusion rifle with the Divinity. Now, the Divinity is really, really useful against overload champions, which I'm sure most of you are aware. If you don't have it, I'd probably recommend the sleeper, definitely, because it will help a lot. But Divinity will be really good. You could also run Divinity into Izanagis, but personally, I think I'd quite like a Divinity in just two linear fusions with the Le-monarque and the Ticuus Divination would help throughout the whole thing. But that's basically it for the warlock. Obviously, make sure you've got your builds on. Protective light and taking charge, obviously very, very useful. And radiant light and powerful friends helpful as well. So that's pretty much it for the warlock. I'm going to go on to the hunter build, if it's going to let me. So what I'd recommend though, if you're going to go hunter, there's a couple builds you can do. If you're going to go void for the invisibility, oh, that's not going to work, is it? Well, that's a bit rude. And we're back after 15 minutes of trying to get back into the game. Thank you very much, Bungie. So let's move on to the hunter. Now, the first build I've done is a stasis build. Now, I feel like stasis is going to be more useful than void for the invis, but again, that's going to be personal preference, so whatever you guys fancy using. So the stasis build, I've gone for the Aeon Swifts. Now, a lot of you might not have seen these. They were from, like, release, I think. Season 1, Season 2, maybe. But the reason I've gone for these is because they have actually changed them over the last few seasons to acquire more new mods. Now, I've gone for the Sector of Insight on this, because when you use a finisher on an elite, you generate special ammo for your fire team. And when you use a finisher on a boss or mini-boss, you generate heavy ammo for your fire team. So this is really, really useful just for getting ammo for your team members. So I would recommend having one of these. If you're not too worried about the ammo side of things, which you should be, I know, you could change it to, let's head over to, which one is it? This one, the Sector Force. So head over to the Sector Force because when you stun a champion, you get a burst of grenade energy of your fire team members. So if you're running a Stasis Warlock, for example, they'll get their turret back a lot quicker because you're getting them grenade energy back. Especially if you just keep stunning them and you can farm that as well. So there's some nice little builds that you could be running with that. So I would recommend that if you're going to be running the Stasis, because there's not much other things that would benefit from that. Now, if you're going to run the Void, I'd recommend Bottom Tree, because there's some bits you can actually avoid throughout the Corrupted Nightfall. Like that first part, you can go invisible, you make your team invis, you go all the way around to the right, just take out the champion and run through. If you're going to be doing that, though, I would recommend the Omnioculus, obviously, because you get 2 smoke bombs. If you don't have this, however, you can always run the 6th Coyote just to get your grenades back quicker. Again, if you don't have that, you can run the Graviton Forfeit. I don't know if I've got one on there now. That would just make your invisibility last a bit longer. I think it's like 10-11 seconds it can be. In terms of the weapons for the hunter, you've seen the Titan running the Ticuus Divination and the Warlock running either the Divinity or the Sleeper Simulant. So for the hunter, I've gone for the Le-monarque. Now, I personally used this one in the Hollowed Lair and loved it. I haven't used it in a Grandmaster before, but I thoroughly enjoyed it, and running it with the Ticuus Divination, just even as a 2 fire team, it works amazing. So I would recommend this 100%. In terms of the heavy, I've gone for the Reed's Regret. Now, this is a personal preference. You can go for the Tarantula, but I love the Reed's Regret for the Vorpal weapon, and it just sounds really nice. Like, the aesthetics of it are really good, so I prefer it. And I've gone for the Ignition Code again, which you've seen on all the other characters with Blinding and Vorpal. I would recommend that. The Blinding Grenades, I say this all the time, but they're really, really helpful. That's pretty much it for the builds. So what I'd probably recommend, though, maybe not a Titan. If you are a Titan main, then probably chuck on a bubble. But I would recommend probably 2 Warlocks and a Hunter. Maybe 2 Hunters and a Warlock. Whatever you guys are comfortable with using, whatever's highest level, obviously, if it's suitable to do the Grandmaster at all. 2 Wells and a Stasis Hunter, or 2 Wells and a Void Hunter, whatever you guys feel comfortable with using. But that is the builds that I would recommend. Or if you wanted to do one well and one stasis, you can on the warlocks. But 2 wells would be nice to just keep getting your wells back and be safe throughout the thing. In terms of mod wise, make sure you've got that particle deconstruction on, because that's going to be so helpful. And definitely on the chest pieces, put on arc resist, because you're going to get wrecked from the arc damage. Even if you just put on 1 arc resist and 1 concussive dampener, just to reduce that area of impact. So when you get booped on that boss phase, you're not panicking, you're not going to get killed instantly. So that's it from me, guys. This will be a very difficult Grandmaster Nightfall. I really hope you get it done. If you guys use anything different, let me know. If you struggle with these builds too much, you can always do a Divinity and 2 Izanagis, with obviously heavy linear fusions and bows. That would be really good as well. But I think these bows would be absolutely fine. If you use anything else, let us know. But good luck with this week, guys. Let us know if you use anything else, and thank you very much for watching. Toodles.